Hey there, I'm Mike Matthews. This is Muscle for Life. Thank you for joining me today for another Q&A episode where I answer questions that people ask me. What I do specifically is over on Instagram. Come follow me at Muscle for Life Fitness once a week, although I missed a couple of weeks because I was out of the country. I went to Italy for my wife's 40th birthday. But normally, every week on Wednesday or Thursday, I post a story with the little sticker to allow people to ask me questions. I get a bunch of questions. I go through them. I pick ones that are interesting, topical questions that I haven't answered a million times before. I answer them briefly there on Instagram, and then I bring everything over here to the podcast and I answer the questions in more detail. So in today's episode, I am answering questions regarding counting macros and disordered eating. Specifically, how can you maintain your physique without having to count macros or count calories? I answer a question about taking a week off of vacation. How do you go on vacation and enjoy yourself without losing a bunch of your progress, losing a bunch of gains, gaining a bunch of body fat? And I just did that myself again for a couple of weeks. So I'm speaking from firsthand experience there. I answer a question regarding sleep versus training. So is it better to choose 6 hours of sleep, not quite enough, but better than 5 hours of sleep plus a workout? Which of those two scenarios is better? I answer a question regarding how often you should update your calories and update your macros when you are cutting and bulking, if one full body workout per week is enough to maintain muscle, and more. And if you want me to answer your questions, come follow me over on Instagram at Muscle for Life Fitness, FOR, not the numeral 4. And again, look for those weekly stories that I put up where I ask for questions. Brittany Glidewell asks, counting macros leads me back to disordered eating, alternative for physique. And by that, she means an alternative that allows you to also maintain your desired physique, which in her case, I'm assuming, is fitter than the average person. So she wants to know, how can you eat intuitively and also maintain a good amount of lean mass and a less than average amount of body fat? And I have 10 tips for this, actually. So the first one is to stick to a meal routine, because by having consistent meal times and by avoiding snacking, you are going to be less likely to accidentally overeat, and you will more or less eliminate food decisions. And those are decisions that can drain your willpower. They can induce decision fatigue, as it is referred to, and that can in turn prompt progressively poorer choices about how you're eating and really how you are doing anything throughout your days. We only have so much mental energy to give to all of the things that we have to do and all of the decisions that we have to make. So my second tip is to go for healthy fats. And healthy really should be in scare quotes, because there are very few unhealthy types of fat. Really, the only one actually that comes to mind is artificial trans fats. You should avoid those completely, but any other type of fat, including the fat in seed oils, is healthy in the context of a healthy diet. And if you want to learn more about that point that I mentioned there, seed oils, because that's very controversial right now, head over to legionathletics.com, search for refined oil, and you'll find an article that I wrote on it. I've probably recorded a podcast too. I don't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, my point here is that most of your dietary fat should come from relatively unprocessed foods like nuts, avocados, olive oil, and so forth, not fast food or prepackaged fare. And that is going to help you control your calorie intake, and it also can improve your health outcomes. My third tip is to move more, because the more you can increase your daily energy expenditure, the easier it is to stay lean. And walking is a very easy way to increase your energy expenditure and to improve your physical health, your mental health, especially if you can get outside and get around nature. Even if you live in a city, is there a park nearby that you can go to and walk through? And a good target to shoot for for your daily walking is anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes of walking per day, and 90 is significantly better than 30. And that's going to burn anywhere from 100 to 600 calories. And if you want to think about it in terms of steps, 90 minutes to 120 minutes, that's going to be probably 8 to 10,000 steps of walking. And a lot of people hear 10,000 steps per day. That's more of a marketing message than an evidence-based prescription, but it does represent about 2 hours of walking per day, which is a good target. My fourth tip is if you are going to snack, stick with nutritious foods. Now, it's best to keep erratic snacking to a minimum because those calories can add up very quickly. But if the need arises, or you just like to have regular snacks in between your larger meals, think fresh fruit, high protein yogurt, stuff like that instead of potato chips and cookies. Fifth tip is to control your portions. If you use smaller plates, if you use smaller utensils, that can help you get fuller on less food, or it can at least encourage you to eat an appropriate amount of food. It can help prevent overeating. Drinking water with your meals can do that as well. Some research suggests that carbonated water can be particularly helpful in inducing fullness satiety. So if you like sparkling water, do that as well. My sixth tip is do not be sedentary for long periods of time. So break up your sitting time by standing up and walking around, doing some stretches, doing some push-ups or pull-ups or chores or whatever. Just move around every hour, let's say every 60 to 90 minutes, ideally. Get up and move around. That is going to raise your energy expenditure, and it also is going to help mitigate the health risks that are associated with sitting too much. Tip number 7 is do not drink your calories. Eat your calories, because caloric beverages are far tastier than they are filling, especially when you compare them calorie for calorie to nutritious food. So eat the calories, drink water or other zero-calorie beverages. Tip number 8 is to eat mindfully. What does that mean? It means when you're eating a meal, sit down, slow down. Focus on your food when you're chewing, not your smartphone. Sip on some water in between bites. Don't try to just rush through the amount of food that you made. Tune into your body's internal cues of fullness. Notice your stomach filling up with food, and notice how that makes you feel a bit fuller, and notice how it impacts the flavor of the food that you're eating. The first bite of the meal is always much more enjoyable than the 15th bite, and that's normal. That's good. Pay attention to those things. Tip number 9 is to eat vegetables, because vegetables are good for more than just nutrition. They're also filling foods that help keep you full, and they help keep you satisfied, and they don't contain very many calories. So a good target is 3 to 5 servings of vegetables per day, a serving being about a fist-sized amount of the vegetable. The 10th and final tip is to get enough sleep, because sleep hygiene directly and indirectly impacts your body composition in many ways, including your appetite. So the more rested you generally are, the less hungry you will generally be, and vice versa. All right, Coach Nikki J asks, taking a week off my workout program for a vacation, will I lose/hinder progress? Nope, absolutely not. Research shows that it takes several weeks of no training to lose muscle and strength, like 3 to 5 in most people. And even if you did take a month or more off, no training whatsoever, and you lost a little bit of muscle, and you lost a little bit of strength, you would quickly regain anything that you did lose once you started training again, which is fun. So there's the not so fun component of detraining, losing muscle, losing strength. But then you do get a consolation prize. It is offset by the fun that you experience when you do get back to it, and you feel like a newbie again. For your first month or two, you are adding weight to the bar every week, and you are watching your body fill back up and watching your muscles grow rapidly. Now, there are 2 other tips I want to share here related to vacationing that are worth considering. Don't do these things if they are going to interfere with you enjoying your vacation, because that's more important. But if you can incorporate these 2 tips into your vacation without sacrificing any enjoyment, then why not, right? I mean, this is what I do personally. So the first tip is, when you're on vacation, eat freely to the point of satisfaction once or twice per day. So that's 1 or 2 meals per day where you just order what you want and you enjoy it, and you don't stuff yourself per se. You eat to the point of satisfaction, but you're not concerned about calories or macros. You're eating the things that you want to eat. Otherwise, alternate between protein shakes, extra filling fruit like apples and oranges, and low calorie and high protein snacks like Greek yogurt or skyr or low fat cottage cheese, turkey jerky, and so forth. And so then your days generally are 1 or 2 larger meals where you eat the things that you want to eat. And then you have these smaller snack meals, lower calorie, higher protein snack meals that keep you full in between the larger meals. And my second tip is to include regular physical activity in your vacation itinerary. And that doesn't necessarily mean formal workouts. That's fine if you want to do formal workouts, if that is something that is going to enhance your vacation. Sometimes I like to do that, sometimes I don't. Usually when I'm on vacation, I'll do anywhere from 1 to 3 like formal workouts, whether it's in a gym wherever I'm at or a hotel gym or whatever. Otherwise, I'm doing other things. So the formal workouts, you can do that. But if that doesn't work for you, think leisurely walks, hikes, bike rides, just activity every day. Try not to barely move and then eat tons of food. Okay, Daniev DB7 asks, how come non-contributing taxpayers are allowed to vote? Do we have too much democracy? So this is on Instagram where I get all these questions, and I proposed a new law with obvious exceptions recognized. You have to have paid taxes in 3 of the last 5 years to vote in any elections whatsoever. Again, there are exceptions for people who are retired and whatever, but generally, if you have not filed a tax return in at least 3 of the last 5 years, you do not get to vote. I think it's a great idea, and I put up a poll, but then the screenshot that I took of the story was, at the time, the poll was at 100% yays, 0% nays, but I'm guessing it didn't end that way. How would you vote, though? If you like what I'm doing here on the podcast and elsewhere, please do consider supporting my sports nutrition company, Legion, because while you don't need supplements to build muscle, lose fat, or get healthy, the right ones can help, like protein powder. A high quality protein powder like a whey protein or a casein protein or a plant-based protein can help you eat enough protein every day, which of course can help you gain muscle and strength faster and improve your overall health and well-being. And if you like protein powder and want to give mine a try, or if you don't know if you like protein powder because you don't currently use a protein powder, but you want to give mine a try, head over to buylegion.com right now, BUYLEGION.com, because we are having a big sale on our protein powders. Buy one, get one 50% off on our whey protein isolate, which is called Whey Plus, which, by the way, is one of our most popular products in terms of total sales and also repeat sales. Listen to this. Between 40 and 50% of people who buy Whey Plus for the first time come back to buy it at least one more time. And in many cases, they come back to buy it again and again and again. We have customers who have been buying Whey Plus for 8 years now, since the beginning of Legion. But if whey isolate is not your deal, we also have micellar casein. It is called Casein Plus, as well as a pea and rice protein blend called Plant Plus. And of course, we have lots of different flavors to choose from. My current favorites, for what it's worth, are salted caramel Whey Plus. I mix 1 scoop of that with 1 scoop of vanilla Plant Plus. And I love the taste of those two together, as well as the texture. I make it kind of goopy. So 1 scoop of each with probably about 8 ounces of water, maybe a little bit more, and then stir it up. And the result is something like a protein pudding, or like mixing protein powder with yogurt rather than a protein shake. And I'll eat it with a spoon. Anyway, to check these products out, to check out the different flavors, and to buy one and get another 50% off, again, head over to buylegion.com now. All right, L. Leon 22 asks, would you suggest 6+ hours sleep or 5 hours sleep in a morning workout? I would suggest neither if you mean regularly, because you need to get more sleep than that. Shoot for at least 7, if not 8 hours per night. And depending on how old you are, how well you sleep, what you do for work, what you do with your time, you may want to consider trying to get more sleep than 8 hours. Research shows, for example, with athletes that they consistently perform better when they sleep 9 or even 10 hours versus 8 hours. And I myself do notice a big difference at this point in my life between 7 hours of sleep and 8 hours of sleep and 9 hours of sleep. Okay, so that's my answer for chronic sleep. Make sure you are getting more than 6 hours of sleep per night, chronically, regularly. However, now and then we are going to get less sleep. And so if the question is now and then, if I have to choose between getting 5 hours of sleep and doing a workout or skipping the workout and just getting an extra hour of sleep, physiologically speaking, there really isn't much of a difference between 5 and 6 hours of sleep. And research shows that your workout should be fairly good despite the sleep deficit. Now, if you undersleep, if you only sleep 5 hours per night several days in a row, no, your workouts will suck. But if you are generally sleeping enough and then you get 5 hours of sleep, research shows that that workout the next day, it might feel a bit harder than usual, but your performance should be the same. You should not notice any decline in strength or muscle endurance or any other metric of performance. You might just have to push through it a little bit harder than usual. And research shows that if you do that workout early in the day, like in the morning, for example, that is going to help you function better throughout the day. It's going to help your body better deal with the negative symptoms of undersleeping. Okay, George Tremulis asks, do you advise on the use of creatine for all weight levels and fitness goals? Yes, absolutely. In fact, considering the growing body of evidence of creatine's many health benefits, so aside from benefiting body composition, which of course can benefit health, but aside from that, I'm talking brain health, heart health, and other aspects, vital aspects of our health, creatine, at this point, it's looking like a worthy addition to anyone's regimen, regardless of their age, regardless of their body composition, regardless of what type of exercise they do. And that's especially true if somebody doesn't eat a lot of meat, because that's the best food-based source of creatine. And so at this point, I think you can make a good evidence-based argument for including creatine with a multivitamin and a fish oil and a vitamin D, a few supplements that I do think everybody should at least consider taking, regardless of how nutritious their diet is. All right, Holly Kahn asks, how do I keep myself accountable? And I replied with something from my next book, the book that I'm working on that will be out next year. And here it is. Look, sometimes training is hard. It is shaving with an axe hard. It is reading a Dickens novel hard. Wrestling with a porcupine in heat hard. But when you get right down to it, you either appreciate training and it motivates you, or not. You either have the spark or you don't. You can only fan embers, not dirt. So if you're only looking for little tricks and tips, you need to think deeper about this thing that you say you want to do. Yes, training is a stormy love affair. It is a glittering slot machine. It is a flickering neon sign. You're just drawn to it, even when it sucks, like a raccoon is drawn to last week's garbage. And that is ultimately what separates the aspiring, not really fit people from the really fit people. The latter people, they train even when it's hard, even when the motivation carcass is being picked by crows. They hook up the defibrillator, they crank up the dials, and they make the damn corpse dance again. Looks dead, but it isn't. The next question comes from Instagram, Arkinth Acupunk, and they ask, how often do you update your calories when you are cutting or bulking? So when you're bulking, most people will need to increase their calories about 100 or so every 10 to 15 pounds gained in order to keep making progress, to keep gaining strength and gaining weight, ultimately muscle. And when cutting, no adjustments are usually needed until you are below 20% body fat if you are a man, or below 30% body fat if you are a woman. Then most people will need to reduce their calories about 100 for every 10 to 15 pounds lost, or they have to increase their total daily energy expenditure about 100 calories for every 10 to 15 pounds lost. And of course, eventually you can no longer move anymore. You can only do so much exercise and so much physical activity, and you do just have to start eating less, especially if you are dieting to get very lean. All right, in The Shadow Sire asks, ever going to make new Legion apparel designs? Yes, someone is actually working on that right now. They are working on overhauling our merch, and I'll be getting designs soon that I'll be able to share. I'm excited about that because many people ask, because they see me wearing these different Legion shirts on social media that you can't buy right now. So we're looking at bringing back some of the more popular ones that we had and creating new ones and new types of clothing that are more in line with what is currently popular, particularly for women and so forth. All right, Jason Remmer asks, is one full body workout a week enough to maintain muscle? Yes, absolutely. And if I were doing this, here's what I would do. I would alternate between two workouts. So I do one of these per week. We can call them workouts A and B. Week 1 would be A, week 2 would be B, repeat indefinitely. So the A workout would start with 3 sets of 4 to 6 reps of a squat of your choice. It could be a barbell back squat. It could be a barbell front squat. It could be a dumbbell variation. It could be a safety bar squat, whatever, but a squat movement. And I would be lifting heavy weights here. So 4 to 6 reps per set, ending those sets relatively close to muscular failure, not pushing to failure though. And then I would do 3 sets of 4 to 6 reps of an incline press of choice, barbell, dumbbell, even machine if you need to, that's fine. And then I would do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of a horizontal row of choice. That could be a barbell row or a cable row, many different options. And then I would do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of a biceps exercise of choice. That would be workout A. Then the following week, I would do workout B. And that would be 3 sets of 4 to 6 reps of a deadlift. So a hip hinge of choice. That could be a conventional deadlift. It could be a sumo deadlift. It could be a trap bar deadlift, even a rack pull or a Romanian deadlift could be worked in. And then I would do 3 sets of 4 to 6 reps of an overhead press of choice. My favorite is barbell, but you can do a dumbbell press or you could do a machine press. And then I would do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of a vertical pull of choice. So think a pull up or a chin up or a lat pull down. And then I would end with 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of a triceps exercise of choice. All right, Joshua Hageman asks, once we are forced to swap meat for bugs, what will be your bug of choice? Well, I'm going to get cows and I'm going to put them on my farm. And those cows, though, are going to be special because they are going to identify as mealworms. And if anyone challenges this or says otherwise, I'm simply going to call them an anelidophobe. Kapil asks, why is that my one leg thigh muscle looks smaller than the other? How can I make it look the same? It's probably a muscle imbalance, and you can use unilateral training to correct that. You can also assess your form on bilateral training to see if you are doing something wrong there that is, or that has produced it and that will continue to produce it even if you work to correct it. And if you want to learn more about that, head over to legionathletics.com, search for imbalance, and you can find an article that I wrote on that. Carlene Rag asks, can't sleep during a calorie deficit, please assist. I've been there. It's annoying. It's probably related to overall stress levels. If stress gets too high, sleep goes to shit. And if stress is generally high, calorie restriction can just overburden your body. And so you have a few options here. One, you can reduce the size of the daily deficit. So let's say you are somewhere around 500 calories per day. That's your deficit to try to lose about a pound of fat per week. That works well for most people, but it might be too much given your circumstances. So if that's the case, try cutting that in half. So a deficit of about 250 calories per day or even less. But the problem with going below that, if you try to go down to 50 or 100 calories per day, you're now within the margin of error for your caloric intake. And so what might happen is little or no fat loss over an extended period of time. Like you might try to do that for a month, 2 months, and then realize you've lost 2 pounds. And that's not very motivating. Okay, another tip here is you can replace moderate and high intensity cardio with walking. So get rid of all moderate and high intensity cardio and just go for walks every day. Again, ideally outside, in the sun, surrounded by some trees is the best way to do that. Another tip is to not do more than 3 strength training workouts per week. That is more than enough to bolster your average total daily energy expenditure and to maintain muscle and strength. More than that can just place unnecessary amount of strain on your body, which then can manifest in poor sleep. Another tip is don't go to bed hungry. So set up your meals so you are full, not stuffed, but full, certainly not hungry when you go to bed. And finally, you don't have to maintain a calorie deficit every day. Sometimes when stress is a bit too high, people do better with 3 to 5 deficit days per week and then 2 to 4 maintenance days per week. Not surplus days, because of course then you can just undo the fat loss that you achieved with your deficit days, but maintenance days. And I suppose the final tip is, if none of that works, maybe now is not the best time to cut. Maybe you should wait until stress levels are lower and you are sleeping well. Okay, Michael Yekimov asks how to stop being afraid of asking for help. Well, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And anyone who tries to make you feel ashamed for asking for help can choke on a rusty spoon. O'Brien Fitness asks, thoughts on these uneducated, popular Fitspos making their own line of supplements? Well, I think that the situation is mostly bad for consumers because most of these products are mostly shit, and it's mostly bad for the influencers because sports nutrition is a tough space to succeed in. Yes, it's a big industry. People spend a lot of money on these products, but it's also very competitive and it's very difficult to differentiate your offering from everybody else. It is very difficult to be able to give customers or prospective customers a compelling answer to the question, why should I choose you over these other competitors? And so a much smarter move for these influencers, for these guys and gals, would be partnering with a top shelf brand that they like, that they can get behind and honestly promote, and that pays generously for good performance. And the reason why that is a much smarter move is it can result in just as much money to the influencer, if not more money, for a fraction of the work and bullshit. For example, in sports nutrition, if you want to make good products and you want to offer good customer service, your profit margin, your net profit when you take out all expenses, is not going to be higher than 10 or 15%. And at the beginning, it's probably going to be much lower than that. Probably no profit for the first year or two. At least that's the case for most businesses in general. They are not profitable in their first few years. But let's say you can get beyond that phase and you now have established your business enough to produce reliable profits. It is not going to be higher than 10 to 15%. As somebody who owns a sports nutrition company, I know how this works. And so let's just say 10%. And also by general business standards, 10% profit. So that's money that's left over for the owner to take, reinvest, or take for himself or herself. That's considered decent in most businesses. 15% is considered good, maybe even very good, depending on the business. And 20+% profit is considered outstanding for most businesses. There are exceptions, of course, but that's generally the rule. So let's just say you have a sports nutrition company that is moderately profitable. It's generating 10% net income on revenue. Well, if that business is going to provide you, the owner, with, let's say, $50,000 to $60,000 per year. So that's what's going to be left for you to take. It's going to have to generate probably about $1 million a year in sales. Now, why? Because on $1 million, we're left with $100,000 in profit, but you can't take all of that money for yourself if you want to keep growing your business. You have to reinvest some of it into your business, and general business standards would dictate at least 20 to 30% of that money reinvested into the business to continue growth. So let's say that you are a smart operator and you put 30% back into your business. You are now left with $70,000, which you then have to pay taxes on. And that, of course, is going to depend on what your total income is, other income sources, tax mitigation strategies, whatever. Let's just say it's 20%. And now you're down to about $55,000. So how likely is that to occur? How likely are you to reach $1 million in sales? Well, various studies have shown that only 1 to 3% of businesses started ever reach $1 million in sales, let alone more than that or even consistently doing that. Just one time, only 1 to 3 businesses ever see $1 million in revenue in 1 year. So if we start with the base rate of, let's just say 1 to 3%, very, very unlikely. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that your business is very, very unlikely to reach $1 million a year in sales and to sustain that and grow beyond that. But you have to start with that baseline assumption, that base rate probability, and then make a case for why you believe that your chances and that your business that you want to start, why its chances are much, much higher than that. And if you can't make a strong argument, an investment hypothesis or investment thesis, as investors would say, like think about pitching somebody to invest in your business. And that's their question to you. They say, look, it's very hard to get to even $1 million a year in sales. Very few people are able to do that. Why should I believe that you can do that? Why should I put my money into your business? Why should I assume that your business is not going to go the way of so many other businesses, which is just out of business within the first 3 to 5 years? And if you can't make a compelling pitch, then your chances for success are probably quite low, and it's probably not worth your time and effort. However, if you are an influencer with a decent following, you don't even have to have a huge following, depending on how engaged these people are with you and how well you serve your followers and help them achieve your goals, you can fairly easily earn $5,000 a month working with companies whose products and services you like. You don't have to own the companies. And if you are strategic about your partnerships, and if you invest some time into becoming a good marketer and a good salesperson, you don't have to be great, just good, then you can earn a lot more than that. Again, without any of the headaches and hassles that come with owning a business, running a business, especially as businesses get bigger. The problems only get bigger and the stakes only get bigger. 2bit333 asks, why didn't you call the sequel to Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger? Well, unfortunately, that train has sailed, but I have not created the sequel to Thinner, Leaner, Stronger yet. And so on Instagram, I put up a poll. Should I call it Beyond Thinner, Leaner, Stronger? The sequel to Bigger, Leaner, Stronger is Beyond Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. Or should I call it Thinner, Leaner, Stronger? And 69% voted for the latter. Should I do it? Okay, the last question here comes from ViruChamp1, and it is current book you're reading. And at the time of answering this, I was in between books because I like to read book summaries first of books that I'm interested in. And I do this to avoid wasting time reading shitty books, because I've found that if I don't like a book summary, I use Blinkist, but there are other services out there that are probably just as good from what I've seen, like InstaRead, and short form might even be better. I might switch to short form from Blinkist, but regardless, if you have at least a decent book summary that gives you the big ideas in the book, and this is particularly useful with nonfiction books, obviously, how-to in particular, self-help, self-development. If you don't really like the summary, then you are probably not going to like the book. And funny enough, I made an exception in choosing my next book, which was 4,000 Weeks, and that was recommended by a lot of people. I read the summary. I didn't find it very compelling. I read the book, and I didn't find it very compelling. It's not a book that I would recommend everybody read. I did like some of the ideas. I did not like many of the ideas simply because I disagreed with them. I disagreed with the line of thinking. And in some cases, I disagreed with how universal the ideas were proposed, as if everybody struggles with these things and thinks about things a certain way and should be thinking about things in another way and should be living their life in another way. And so anyway, it served as an example of why I should have just stuck to my system. The book summary was middling, and the book for me was middling. Well, I hope you liked this episode. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, subscribe to the show, because it makes sure that you don't miss new episodes. And it also helps me because it increases the rankings of the show a little bit, which of course then makes it a little bit more easily found by other people who may like it just as much as you. And if you didn't like something about this episode or about the show in general, or if you have ideas or suggestions or just feedback to share, shoot shoot me an email, mike@muscleforlife.com, muscle, FORlife.com, and let me know what I could do better, or just what your thoughts are about maybe what you'd like to see me do in the future. I read everything myself. I'm always looking for new ideas and constructive feedback. So thanks again for listening to this episode, and I hope to hear from you soon.